Welcome to The Real Build. I'm your host, Bill Reiman, your broker builder. And today I got a special guest coming all the way from Los Angeles, California. He's a second generation business owner with his family's commercial development company and commercial real estate broker as well. He specializes in the acquisition, development, and management of commercial investment properties, specializing in multifamily residential and commercial retail properties. His company's primary locations focus on Southern California, Nevada, and Arizona. And a cool thing about him, he also trains personal protection canines, which I want to definitely hear more about. Ahmed Seirafi, welcome to The Real Build. How you doing today?
Bill, good afternoon. Thank you for having me. It is definitely a pleasure and an honor to be on The Real Build with you, and I look forward to our conversation.
Thanks, Ahmad. I appreciate you coming on, man. I've been wanting to have you on for a while. You're a good friend. Me and you met through Arte. Appreciate you coming on, man. I've been wanting to have you on, talk some commercial development, commercial real estate. I haven't had anybody on in the commercial space, so it's going to be a good topic to talk about. And also the K-9 thing's kind of intriguing to me too. So I want to hear more about that, how you got into that too. But what I like to get started with is let's talk about your background. So who is Ahmed Seirafi?
All right. Well, it's a good question. And I was born and raised here in Southern California, born in Arcadia, which is, just next door to Pasadena, home to the Rose Bowl and the Rose Parade. If anyone cares to watch that anymore, I'm pretty sure it's kind of not as exciting as it used to be. At least for me, it isn't. But born and raised here in Southern California, grew up in the gas station business. My father owned gas stations, so I pretty much, spent my weekends and summers and after schools working in the gas station business. Whether it's behind the counter and selling candy and soda, or is it in the back of the house, stocking shelves and repairing gas pumps. Grew up in the business, went to college here in Southern California, decided to major in real estate major in finance with a specialty in real estate. I always felt that money would never go out of style. Money would always be used. Is something that everyone needs on a daily basis. So, finance was something that interested me. And my school had a specialty or a sub something to go along with the major, which was real estate and investment. Mm-hmm. So I majored in finance with a specialty in real estate. It came time for graduation, and it was, kind of the choice of, what do you do next? Where do you go? Where do you work? One of my professors was a executive for a development company. He suggested I go look into the commercial real estate realm as a broker. He had a friend over at CB Richard Ellis. I think, most people would be familiar with them. They were starting a new training program, pretty elite. It was not easy to get into, hundreds of applicants. And I think they only took about 7 of them the first year. And I was one of those applicants that made it. I actually interviewed probably about 15 times with the company to get in. But, I guess they thought enough of me to be accepted and to get into the training program with CB Richard Ellis. Spent a number of years brokering there. I probably did a couple $100 million worth of real estate transactions. I guess the largest transaction I did was a corporate relocation. It was, written up in the newspapers and stuff as the largest of the year. As a national food company, I moved them. Total consideration, probably about $33 million. And it was it's a nice, nice pat on the back to have, a large transaction like that. It really felt good. Stayed in commercial real estate for a number of years, doing a lot of the, the warehousing and the offices out here in Southern California, which was, pretty hot back in the day. And then from there, I left the company, was doing some brokerage on my own, commercial real estate brokerage. I still do some of that to this day for friends and family. And it came an opportunity to manage a commercial construction company. The family business was still, in its infancy. There's a few investments which I kind of shadow managed, and gave me a great opportunity to get into the construction side of the business and managing this commercial construction company, mostly focusing on public work, colleges, universities, public buildings, things like that. Managed that company for a few years. Was doing about $50 million a year in construction work. I have crews up to about 50 journeyman labor, union men. Had a handful of project managers who worked under me, and got a lot of really good experience in the construction side of commercial that way. And then the opportunity came up that, the family business was kind of at a point where it's either you grow or you die. There was a few investments, not very big. And it came to the point where, okay, now it's time to really start growing this, because if not, nothing's going to happen. So I stepped over and started working with the family business and trying to grow that business into something much more than it was. And here I am today. I just continue on with that.
Yeah, I mean, your background right there, just from you starting basically from nothing. I mean, working at a gas station and getting all the way to where you are today in real estate, and having that experience as a broker too, and commercial real estate, and then moving into the development part too, is, probably helped you tremendously, I'm guessing too.
Definitely.
And so, real quick too, because I brushed on it and I'm sure the listeners want to hear, what about the K-9 training?
The K-9 training, well, that's kind of like the fun, you know what I mean? Something that was a kind of a necessity. I've always loved dogs. I always had dogs. My wife and I, our first date was at a dog park. She brought hers, I brought mine, and it is all perfect from there on out. And after I got married and got a house, in a nice community, and is actually a gated community. And during the day, during one Easter break, kids were off at school. We got burglarized in the middle of the day, and we came home to it. And my wife was freaked out, and I was freaked out. And I'm like, how did this happen? We got 6-foot block wall around the house, and it seemed like a couple kids, jumped the wall and decided to have fun in our house at our expense. And so I was pretty much at a point where I was a bit paranoid, when it comes to my family, my home. So what do? Do you get an alarm system? Do you get a gun? Do you do, what do you do? And my brother was a police officer, and he was a K-9 officer, and I met his dog, a while ago. And I've always, loved dogs, and I always thought it was really cool what he does with his dog. And I said, you know what, I'm going to get a dog. This dog is going to be, inside with my wife when I'm not home. He's going to be outside, patrolling the yard when we're gone. And I was able to find a younger German Shepherd at the local shelter, one of the rescue organizations, and got him and started taking him to the obedience and personal protection classes that the local K-9 Academy would offer on the weekends, and been doing that for a number of years now, and it's been a lot of fun. The dog, he loves it. To him, it's like Disneyland. I mean, every time we show up on a Saturday to go train and go learn, he is just the happiest dog I've ever seen. It's just complete fun for him. It's like when he sees a guy in his bite sleeve and in a full bite outfit, or jumping some barrels or running through hoops, he's just having a great time. And I'm like, if he's happy doing it, then that's great, because he's gonna provide the protection for the home, provide that having a dog around, which is a great feeling. And the biggest problem with that, though, is my wife has turned my 70-pound German Shepherd into a 5-pound lap dog when I'm not around.
That's usually how it goes, right?
Yeah. So it's kind of hard keeping him on point when he's running around the house with squeaker toys and all sorts of treats and enjoying his life versus, protecting the home. But I'm sure if the opportunity came up, he'd do just fine.
Yeah, you gotta love dogs, right? We all love them. So, let's getting back. I mean, you brushed on this stuff a little bit, so I want to discuss kind of your business a little bit more here. You're second generation, similar to myself, with your parents, with your family's development company. So you brush on this a little bit. So how did the company start, and why did you choose to be in investment development in that business, and what was your reason behind it?
I guess it kind of, two things came together. I've always loved building things. I mean, I guess, when I was young, I had the biggest box of Legos you'd ever see. And it kind of continued through college, where I was, putting together events and just putting things together in one way or another. And I always
Hmm.
liked creating something from nothing, whether it's building my Legos or creating an event or doing something that you had to like get all the pieces and assemble them, and something was created out of nothing. I've always loved that. Really, I'd almost do this job for free because it's just really enjoyable. The family business, over the years with the gas stations, my dad has picked up a couple pieces of dirt here and there over the years of, buying and selling gas stations. Picked up a couple investments over the years, and it kind of came, to a point where, okay, hey, we got some opportunity here. Let's start, growing this business. Let's start doing something productive with some of the land that we have bought and some of the investments that we had. And I've loved construction. I've loved putting things together. I've had some good experience and some good success in it. So it's just it was kind of like the natural transition for me to go from commercial brokerage to managing commercial construction companies to now investing and developing our own properties and growing up from there.
Hmm. I mean, and your story's similar to mine. I mean, I grew up, and I've said this before, I grew up probably with a lot of Legos, just like yourself, building things constantly and so on. And always being creative and having that creative mind too is obviously transitioned into real life, which is awesome with homes and everything like that. And I'm sure it's the same with you with commercial buildings and development. But, it's just having that background, because I've interviewed a lot of people on my show that were second, third generation, and we all have similar stories growing up in an environment that you get so used to, being around the development or the real estate stuff and so on, has kind of helped you become even better at it. And me and you are going to kind of dive into a whole nother topic of being a second generation here in a little bit, because we have our struggles doing it, trying to build upon, what was already started. But yeah, it's awesome to hear, man. I mean, and you being so your focus is mostly multifamily residential and commercial retail properties, correct?
Yeah, we've come to an understanding that focusing on certain types of properties will, in a sense, make you better at what you do. You know what I mean? You
Hmm.
can't, yeah, master of all. In my business, I've found, many developers, they specialize in industrial properties. Many developers or investors will specialize in apartment properties, and they won't touch anything else because they want to keep that focus. The other developers and the investors that kind of do everything are the ones that I feel are, they're probably doing well, but they could do better if they focused a lot more. And the reason why we do, just the two product types is because that's what we're comfortable with, and that's what we know the best. The commercial retail properties are, small retail buildings that would be, small, strip malls with like a 7-Eleven tenant, a couple of others, or a small retail office building. Or it would even be, gas stations and car washes, which we're getting back into again, not because we want to be in the business, because running a gas station and a car wash are difficult, but these are businesses that we know, so we're going to get back into them, not for the the long-term real estate appreciation, but for the cash flow that they will provide to go and focus on the main part of the business, which would be the multifamily apartment buildings. So, those are buildings that we will build for longevity. Those are buildings that we'll keep for a very, very long time. The gas stations and car washes are good because they do provide that cash flow. And if we have the opportunity to pick up land that would be good for those properties, we will, because it's something that we know. But those are the catalyst and the engine to go build the multifamily properties. And sticking with those two, you know, I feel like it would be, in our best interest to focus on that. Now, if something came my way that was a really great deal, I'm not going to pass it up. You know what I mean? If someone gives me Maine and say, hey, this would be perfect for an office building, I'll build it, because if it calls for it, I'll do it. But, my focus is on those other types of properties right now.
Yeah, I mean, you're focusing on your expertise too, and what you guys know better than anybody. And that's, I mean, it's a similar story with us too. We're strictly residential, new construction. That is, we don't really touch remodels. I'll refer them out to certain remodelers that are really good that I know, but we stick within our kind of our niche of what we know the best and what we're good at and what kind of that brand we've established too. So, and yeah, we don't touch commercial. That's why it's good to have you on too and talk about a different topic rather than residential. So that kind of, yeah, and that kind of brings me into the next thing too. So, how are your commercial properties built? Just so, because I'm sure a lot of people don't know the amount. I know there's a lot that goes into commercial, and there's a lot of people that probably don't know the amount of work that goes into a commercial project or property. So, in the teamwork behind it. So let's talk about, briefly, maybe from start to finish, how the process goes.
It's a good question. It's definitely something that is, kind of similar to, the single family residential, which what you do. The steps, it would be technically, would be going down the same pathway as a single family home, taking those same steps. But for a commercial property, you would add, a lot more steps to it. If you took 5 steps to get start to finish for a single family home, it might be 15 to 20 steps for a commercial property. It all starts with, finding a good piece of dirt. You know what I mean? It's like, is this a good spot to build a home or an apartment building or a gas station or a car wash? If it's the right, if the property is a good piece, if it's zoned correctly, and if it's not zoned correctly, you got to go through the rezoning process. And that, that can take some time and cost a lot of money as well. But if if it's a good piece of dirt, you go through the headache of doing that. Second, you would get into a design, with what you want to do on that property. That design, you take that design and you kind of run it by the planning department at the local city or the county where you want to do your work, just to kind of get their feedback on it. If this is going to fit, if this is following all the design standards, if it's checking off all the boxes. If they're okay with that, or there may be some back and forth in terms of design changes and site changes. These may require more parking. They may require more landscaping, stuff like that. The difference between a commercial and a residential property is the requirements. A single family home, you need 2 garages and a driveway, and you're good. If you're building an apartment building, you got to have approximately 1.25 to 1.5 parking spaces per apartment. You're looking at, visiting parking spaces. You're looking at circulation. You're looking at fire department approval. If the fire trucks can get in and out of the site easily. You're looking at, public works, seeing how you can bring the type of water, the electrical, the sewer connections to the property, which are going to be much more than a single family home. Then you're looking, down things that like height requirements. Is the building too high? Then you got to go through a design review board and saying, hey, does the actual aesthetics of the building, fit with the neighborhood? If you're looking at building something that's all glass and steel and the whole neighborhood is all Spanish Mediterranean, the city's going to come back and say, hey, this doesn't fit. We're not okay with that. So it goes through that. Then you go through, different other public safety, the police department has to give their sign off on it saying, hey, we have good access to the property. We're okay with how this is designed, and then it goes to planning department again after you checked off all your boxes. And then, then there's a good chance if the planning department approves it or denies it, you go back for changes, or if they approve it, then you go to city council. The city council, weighs in on it, and then you have public comment where the whole neighborhood comes out and they say, hey, we want it, or hey, no, this is going to be a monstrosity to the neighborhood. We don't want it. We want some changes. Then you can go back to the planning department all over again and make the changes, or it may get approved. So there's a lot more steps to navigate and negotiate just to get the project approved, because a commercial property has a lot more interaction with the community and with the city than a single family home. So you got to make sure all those boxes are checked off, when it comes from public works and sewer and electrical and water connections, public safety, making sure the police department's okay with the design and access, the fire department saying, hey, we can get our trucks in and out of there easily in case there's a problem. Design review board, hey, this building looks great, it fit in with the neighborhood, or it looks horrible and we want you to change it. And just down, so many more boxes to check off, and it does take a lot longer. You can, especially here in California where things take forever, it may take a couple of years just to get a commercial project approved, just because of the amount of regulations and restrictions we have here and all the boxes you need to check off to get to an approved project. I mean, if you can get your project approved in a year and a half, you're doing great. You're doing really good. I mean, I'm on a project right now and we're like 7 years into the approval.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So it's a lot more steps to take, but the greater the risk, the greater the reward.
Yeah. I mean, definitely. I mean, I'd say a lot more steps to take after hearing that. I mean, residential, you have your typical stuff you have to abide by. You have your inspections throughout the process and so on. You have your permitting process, obviously, is the first thing, and applying for permit, abiding by all the codes. The city has to go through the plans, make sure you meet all the setback requirements and so on. But obviously with commercial, you have a lot more eyes on it and a lot more opinions on it too. So as far as development of it, how are you using block, to build? Are you using, as far as building material, what are you doing?
Out here in Southern California, it is it depends on what you're building. You know what I mean?
Okay.
I guess because, listening to some of your other podcasts and some of your other guests, the weather around the country is a whole lot different.
Yeah.
California, it's a very temperate, environment. I guess in Florida you have hurricanes and humidity, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Out here we have an occasional earthquake. That's pretty much it. So our properties are, a majority of the design that goes into them are for seismic reasons.
Okay.
Sure that they can withstand, an earthquake. Temperature, and stuff, it rarely gets above 100 degrees out here. Maybe a couple days a year it gets into the hundreds, maybe 110 a couple days a year. And then, during the winter, maybe you see some, a number of days are down in the 40s, a couple in the 30s. That's like the coldest it gets out here. So in terms of building, we're mostly, for a, single story retail commercial building or a multi-story apartment building, we're mostly seeing, it's mostly wood frame. You'll have maybe some structural steel supports throughout the building. And then you'll have a lot more items that would deal with the seismic requirements, such as shear walls and special kind of joisting and items that would allow for some sway to the building because of the earthquake requirements. And then
which makes sense. Definitely. Yeah.
I think out there you're doing a lot of block and stuff like that.
Yeah, we're doing, I mean, here, that's what people, and a lot of the people I've had on my show, I mean, we all build different ways, no matter, in different areas of the country and even in different countries too. But here, a lot of people will come down from different parts of the country and they'll be in sticker shock because of the amount per square foot we charge. But what they don't understand, and I have to, show to them where these extra costs are going, is these homes that we're building are basically mini commercial buildings. They're on top of pilings. There's so much concrete work in them too, and concrete's not cheap here. And we have to elevate the homes too because of flood, and that's another expense, bringing in dirt and so on. Impact glass, impact everything's impact garage doors, like, that are category 5 rated for anything flying into them. So there's so many things and variables that go into these homes that drive up cost. And it's just educating people on, and it's probably the same where you're at with as far as earthquake and stuff like that too.
For the most part, yeah. It's mostly, from what I understand, you guys have a high water table, so I know your foundations and your footings and your site work is much different than ours. It
Yeah.
and what we would have to do. Our site, our groundwater table here is not so bad. We don't really have those issues. We do, and it's becoming more and more prevalent, is also the fire sprinklers that are becoming more and more of a requirement everywhere you go now, because we're in a pretty dry climate down here, and fires are fairly prevalent from time to time. So it's the earthquakes, the fires, those are the things that we have to worry about. The energy efficiency is it's a big part, but I don't think it's anything more than most parts of the country.
Yeah, everybody's.
Our installation is not as bad. Not having vapor barriers in the walls and the ceilings. That's not something we usually do out here because we don't have those types of the frost and the high humidities and the ice and the water issues as most parts of the country. So those are a lot of things that we don't necessarily have to do, as long as most of the other things are taken care of, which is your insulation, your lighting, your HVAC systems that are all pretty much energy efficient. Out here they just passed the law that all new single family homes need to have solar in them now. So California is pushing really, really hard for the energy efficiencies, more than the construction standards of this house has to be on block or really thick concrete or things like that, where maybe in your part of the country it's more important.
Yeah, definitely. That's interesting. There in the solar thing. I mean, solar's become pretty popular down here, being the sunshine state that we're in here. So it's becoming popular everywhere. I want to get into, like, because this show is all about obviously helping the customer too. And I guess some builders that listen to this. So this question kind of goes both ways. What were some major challenges that you have faced in construction that affected your customers, and how can we as builders prevent these from happening?
That's the number one question I think about all the time. When I was doing work for the commercial construction company, and we were doing work on schools and universities and public buildings, a big problem we would face, and I think any builder would face, and the end customer needs to understand this, is you take your design to the architect and he draws it up for you, but after it goes to the architect, it needs to go to the engineers. They need to create a buildable product. They need to take this drawing and say, okay, if that's what you want, this is how it needs to be built. One of the biggest issues though that we've faced is engineers not creating a buildable product that's 100% buildable. I mean, it's kind of like they're in the office and they're cutting and pasting their engineering standards, but a lot of times when you get out to the field, things just don't work. They don't fit. It's going to cause a lot of delays. It's going to cause some change orders. It's going to cause different materials and issues on site. So the customer needs to know that just because you have a set of plans and a set of drawings, it doesn't mean it's going to be able to be constructible. It's like building Legos, and you're you're missing a couple details, like where does this piece go, or how does this piece fit, or I put this piece in, but it doesn't, but the other pieces won't fit around it. So, the customer needs to understand that, there will be issues. The engineering documents and the construction plans are not 100% perfect, and just because they think that's how you build a house, once you get out on the field, there'll be some issues. Another major issue I ran into is subcontractors who are overextended in terms of the amount of work they can provide you. They would come out and bid a project, and they would be a major critical path type subcontractor. One of the ones I was talking about is structural steel in some of these big commercial buildings. The structural steel contractor will come out and say, okay, here's my bid. This is what you need. This is the sequencing and how the steel needs to be manufactured in our facility and brought out to the project in the sequence, so the building could be constructed as it should be. Well, some contractors, they bid the job and they're a little bidder and they get the business, but they cannot handle the business. Mm-hmm. They may be short on staff. They may have financial problems and they can't get the raw materials in. They may have other jobs that they're doing that are running over. And so that pushes your project back, so it's very important to know that your subcontractors, especially the critical path guys, which are, your cement guys, your framing guys, your structural guys, your major MEP guys, are able to show up on schedule and get the product on site and installed on schedule, and not hold up anyone else in the project, because those critical path items can throw a whole project off by weeks and months if they're not done on time. And I've experienced a project where one contractor would send out his materials out of sequence. Mm-hmm. We're on a 15 building high school one time, and the building needed to be open by, August or September, whenever school started. And they already had students lined up to come. And these buildings needed to be building in a certain order, because in case, building 7 is not done, buildings 1 through 6 are done. And those are, important buildings for the students to use. But the contractor would be sending out his material in the wrong order, meaning we had to jump around and start building buildings out of sequence, and that caused all the other trades to have to change all their material, mm-hmm. and all their crews. And so everyone was scrambling just to try and keep some sort of schedule on track to get this building open in time so these students can come to school, because one contractor was overextended and couldn't get the right material on the site on time. So it's important to know that these subcontractors and material suppliers can do what they promise, and I guess that comes to having a relationship with these guys. I would suggest visiting their facilities, making sure they are, capable of providing what you have requested. And that, includes, the cement guy, the framing guy, making sure they have enough, labor, they have, even I've seen some general contractors and project managers looking into the financials of the subs, making sure they are not being held up because their financial situation is not, in good standing with the suppliers and stuff like that. So it's important to make sure that these subs can perform when they're needed, and if not, it screws up the whole project. And then then comes the liquidated damages, and who's going to pay those?
No, I mean, both are really good points. I mean, brushing on that too. If the thing with that customers need to understand too, I mean, there is some really good architects out there, but the architect, and I've said this before too, an architect should actually have a training program that's actually out on the field so they can see reality and see what works too. That's why it's so important to have, the builder that has a great relationship with that architect and knows what they're doing too. And that's on the customer to make sure that the builder knows, because some builders won't even, they'll just build the plan as is.
Yes.
And that it is what it is. They won't find certain things out in the field that are problems. They'll just keep building it, and then there'll be problems later on, and it's the customer's problem. So if you have a good builder that knows what they're doing and has experience. And I always talk about experience too being so key, because there's going to be issues, like you said, out in the field. There always is, because an architect, like I said, can put pen to paper, but in reality, not everything always works, and they might miss it. And it's huge for the customer to know that that builder has the experience to catch these things and also fix them too. And if the builder misses it and it's our mistake, we got to pay to fix them too. Some builders will say it's not my fault. You should have caught it. But with us, if it's our mistake and we should have caught it, we always end up fixing it no matter what. Now with the subcontractor thing, that's another huge topic too, because one thing with customers, in my opinion too, is they want to make sure that the builder is actually paying the subs. That's a huge thing. Because if they're not paying their subs aren't going to do the work, and then your project's going to be delayed. Like you said, one sub's not doing something, that stops the whole entire project, because it's all a process. It's all goes up in blocks, just like we said, just like Legos. Everything's a process too, and it's so important that when a customer is looking for a builder, that and I keep going back to the long-term builders and builders with experience, but builders with experience have certain subcontractors that they've worked with for years, because they've paid those subs. Those subs are loyal to them, will go to their jobs over other builders more than likely, because they know they're going to get paid, which makes the process move faster too. Because as you know, everybody out there wants to know how fast they can get a house done. Well, I always tell them too, I'm always honest with our time frames, but I say that guy might tell you sooner, but he's not going to get it done sooner. We've been around a long time. So
just touching on that, it's interesting you say that, because catching those mistakes by the builder is very important. I was on a job a few years ago, part of the construction team, the project management team, and we were building a performing arts center, a culinary school, and an office building for a community college district out here. And the community college district hired an architect and an engineer to design their facilities, and then they hired a project management construction company to build it, which I was part of that team. Well, before they even started putting a single shovel in the dirt, there was, from the builder and the subs, there was like 350 RFIs for the project, and over 100 change orders before they even put a single shovel in the dirt. Meaning the engineer, like you said, your architect needs to get out in the field. The engineer and the engineering company who makes these construction drawings, they need to get their guys out in the field to understand what it really takes to build a building. Because if they're designing everything on their programs, and they're clicking and cutting and paste, the detail and the design and the connection and the footing and the AC and the pipe, pipes where the pipes go and stuff like that. If they don't ever get out in the field and actually see how these things are being done, they could be in the office making a lot of mistakes, which happens quite often. And it's up to the builder like you to catch those mistakes. And when you catch those mistakes, there's delays, and who gets in trouble? You do, unfortunately, for those delays.
Yeah, it's like you said. I mean, it's like you said, because I mean, we've had instances. We just had one recent where the architect had a structural beam cut across, and the problem was with that is we couldn't get the AC into the master bedroom because you can't cut through a structural beam. Yeah. So we had to end up dropping a ceiling and doing a detail for the customer in that ceiling. But whose fault is that? So you have all these things that you have to figure out, and the customer was fine with what we ended up doing. But there's a lot of things, like you just said, that reality, if they saw reality, it's a whole different aspect. Big time.
So come out and get your hands dirty, guys. I'll job site as much as you want, as long as you can make it easier for me in the future.
Yeah. And like I said, there's architects that I work with that are really, really good. They catch everything prior, and they make the adjustments. Even they'll even catch it before I catch it, which that's a good architect. And that's why it's so important to have that relationship as a builder with your architect too. and that communication aspect. And that's kind of what I'm jumping into next. Obviously, with customers, I mean, communication is so important, even with architects, like I just said. So what other things can builders implement in their business to help guide customers throughout the process? As far as to avoid these things like, architecture problems, sub problems, so on. What can we do?
I think a big help for builders out there would be having their client involved at critical path moments and certain parts of the build. I know there's some customers out there, especially single family residential customers, they're like, just give me the baby. I don't want the pregnancy. Just give me the baby. I just want to walk into a finished house. And
Hmm.
there's others that are, more involved, and they want to know what's going on in their home or their property or their project. They want to see what's going on, and they want to, make sure the quality is there during the process. And I think something that I like to do, and I think is very, very important, and it is a little bit of extra work, but having a kickoff meeting with the client, with the engineer, with the
Hmm.
architect, and with the builder, and everyone sitting around the table, making sure everyone's on the same page here. Because, if everyone starts off on the same foot, they're going to continue down that construction path on the same foot. And if everyone's accountable from day one for their portion of the project, or their portion of the construction, they can't go back and say, well, it was this guy or is this guy or it was that, because they were accountable from day one to not only the builder but to the owner as well. And so if the owner knows that the engineer or the architect or the builder is, you know holding up their end of the bargain, I think it make them, the owner and the customer, feel a whole lot better during that construction process. And when there is an issue that comes up or when there is a delay, everyone can get on the phone. Everyone knows each other. Everyone can sit down at the
Hmm.
table and say, hey, this is a problem. This has come up. This is why it's potentially out of our hands, or it's, something, an act of God, or it's an issue with, existing conduit and pipe and sewer lines and gas lines that are under the property, or who knows what it is. But if everyone has that relationship from the very beginning, it's going to make that process a whole lot smoother, getting to a completed product.
Yeah, I know. I 100% agree, because you get everybody in the same room. There's everybody can have their opinion on what's going on too. And I even do it with like existing plans. If a customer brings me an existing plan, I'll make sure, you know, I'll bid if they're bidding other builders, okay, I'll bid it. And if we win the job, I always tell them, all right, I want to sit down and go through this plan and make some corrections to it too, and kind of go over things with you, because all the electrical is not always there the way it should be. All the, there's certain things you can maneuver and certain rooms you can change and so on to make the house better for resale. So that's where we come in as professionals too, and that's why, once again, I emphasize this to customers, is that if they are looking for a builder, make sure the experience level is there to where they're actually going to help you. They're not just going to take your plan and build it, because I guarantee you might think you have the most perfect plan in the world, but it's not. There's something missing, and you're going to end up paying for it later and probably be pissed off later on if you do miss it. So while it's on paper, get it done as much as possible. I always tell them there's a lot of stuff we can do out in the field when you see walls up, but there's some stuff that needs to be done before, especially major room design and so on. So that's for sure. Um, so your family's company is one of the larger development companies in Southern California. So what are you doing to stand out from the rest of the commercial developers in your area? And what should people take notice of when choosing a contractor like yourself?
We mostly, you know, what we build for ourselves. I don't build for anyone else really anymore. It's
Okay.
mostly for our long-term hold properties. But, I don't really have customers, but I do have tenants. I do have renters. I do have people who are long-term, you know, tenants or renters in our buildings. And, you want to attract those people to your product. You want to attract those people to your your property. You want to attract them to your apartment building. So there is a bit of competition out there with the other developers, the other construction companies, the other properties out there. So what are you doing to stand out? And you know, it's kind of nice being in Arte, because Arte has only reinforced this mindset that I have is what is it, you under promise and over deliver.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a big proponent of giving people more than their money's worth, and it doesn't have to be a lot, but you always hear you get what you pay for. Well, with me, I want to give a little bit more than what you pay for. And that will come not only in terms of a completed product, meaning an apartment building or a retail building or something where somebody will live or operate their business, but it'll also come into the customer service. But making sure that your team, your management team, your construction team, or anyone else related to your business and your properties and your projects and your developments, everyone is on the same page in terms of delivering a product that is better than everyone else, because they need to take that personal pride that I have. Like when I'm driving down the street, I'm like, that's a building that I built, and I know that building is better than that building because I put more time and intention into it than the other guys. I'm looking at building something for the long term. I'm looking at building something that is going to stand the test of time and not come in and whip something together and move on to the next one. So it's about giving more in terms of design, giving more in terms of amenities, giving more in terms of customer service, giving more in terms of every aspect of a property than the other guy can give. And I hope that will reflect in the future. And I do have some tenants that you can talk to, and they invite me to their Christmas parties, and I get Christmas gifts from them. So I would think they're pretty happy with what I delivered to them, and the product in terms of a building as well as the customer service after they move in.
Well, it's so what you just said. I mean, that is so spot on. It's beyond, it's unbelievable. Because like I repeatedly say it, because you got to take pride in what you do, and that's the thing. And not unfortunately, not a lot of builders out there do. It's just about the dollar. As let's make quick money and move on to the next. And I mean, I have a builder locally that I had a actually meeting with a customer earlier today, and the customer told me that builder called him directly and said, well, whoever's bidding your job, I can beat them by far and do it cheaper than them by far. Well, thank God my customer had a friend that built with that builder, and his friend told him, do not build with that builder, because I've had nothing but issues since. And that goes to explain what you just said. If you take pride in your product, and like you said too, you're driving down the road and actually saying, yeah, I built that, I know it's going to last, I'm going to be there for those customers too, and you're passionate about what you're doing, but also the product that you're delivering to that customer that's going to live in there or stay in that development too. That says so much about you as a developer. And in the interview process too, people should be asking those type of questions that and ask. And if you're coming at them with what you just said to me, I mean, I'd be sold in a heartbeat, because not every builder is going to do that.
It really doesn't take that much to provide a drastically superior product than the next guy. It really doesn't. You know what I mean? If it comes in terms of materials, it doesn't really take that much. If it comes in terms of craftsmanship, not that much. Customer service, not that much. I mean, I still go out there, and I even from time to time go out and collect rents and knock on the doors and see the tenants and the customers that have been, in our properties for a long time. They all have my phone number. They all text me when they need something. They all say, hey, we're glad that we're happy to see you. We're everything is great, and if there is a problem, you take care of it quickly. We're happy. And I'm like, it doesn't take that much to make a phone call and follow up with somebody, or to knock on a door every once in a while to make sure everyone's happy. It really doesn't. But most guys do not do it.
No, it amazes me. I mean, even little things that they'll cut corners on just to save a little bit more money too, and I've seen them too. I mean, I brought this one up like on, and it drives me crazy, and I bring it up to people too. It's like one of my selling points. I go, we even changed the hinges out on our doors. Every single interior door, we swap out hinges for the actual We use M Tech, and we swap them out for the good hinges. We don't leave the construction grade hinges on the door. And I go, I guarantee you'll go around to other builders now and notice this. And they go, oh yeah, we'll notice. And they end up coming back and say, you were right. They didn't swap, they have the painted hinges on there still. I can't believe it. It's just little tiny details that aren't that much money that you can do as a builder because you take so much pride in what you do.
Yeah.
And they're just trying to save up. It's like saving pennies in the scheme of in a house or a commercial development building and so on. And it's just, I can tell with you have the same passion as I do about delivering a good product, having your name and your brand on that product, and just taking care of people and making them happy. Because I mean, we're not going to don't get me wrong, we're not going to get along with every single customer. That you still have those customers that can be hard to work with too, but there's a lot of customers out there too that have had a bad experience, and then they end up going with you, and you change their whole mindset on the construction industry too.
It comes down to an education process. You know what I mean? It comes
Mm-hmm.
down to having them be a part of the process and let them make that decision for themselves. Like I was
Mm-hmm.
watching your other podcast, the gentleman was using 5/8 drywall instead of 1/2 inch.
Mm-hmm.
That really doesn't cost that much, but it makes a huge difference in the product.
Yeah.
You know, second floor. My home here was built 20 years ago, and I know it wasn't built that well by a mass home builder because the second floor creaks all over the place. They probably just nailed down the plywood, but if you take the time to glue it down then nail it down, it's going to last forever.
Yeah.
But it creaks all over the place. You know what I mean? Why? Because they didn't take the time to use a little bit of construction grade flooring glue and gluing down the plywood to the beams. But it's all about speed and saving those pennies, like you said.
Yeah, exactly. And not about cutting corners too. And that kind of gets into my next topic because I've asked this a lot too. As far as materials, what are you using or things are you doing to stand out from the rest of your competition? Because you said you go that little extra. So what are some things in your commercial space that, in some of your developments that you're doing?
Most properties we're looking on keeping for the long term, but things change, and you will
Mm-hmm.
sell things. You will get refinanced. You'll have to move from a market or a different area to a different area. It just depends on your business. But working on new projects as well as working and remodeling and repairing existing buildings that I didn't build, you see where attention to detail is missed because they are not thinking about the future. Everything that I do, I think about the longevity of things.
Mm-hmm.
So whether it's my property, I'm going to go and make sure that I run extra conduit between the electrical room through the length of the building, just in case there's going to be new feeds, a new meter, or a new outlets that need to be put in. There's already extra, main conduit that's already in the building. It doesn't take much to run a couple extra pipes across a home or a commercial building just to tap into in the future. You have 100 amp service with 20 breakers. Well, what does it cost to put in a 200 amp panel that has 30 breakers and space for additional fuses and breakers to be put in the future? An extra $100 maybe, $150 for a bigger panel. It doesn't cost that much. An electrical room, you know, why don't you expand the size of it just a little bit? Because you never know what technology is going to bring you in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Technology can come in with this crazy new machine that says, okay, if you have this much room in your electrical room, it's going to take over your communication, your electrical metering, your lighting systems, everything's going to be integrated in this new machine, but you need the space for it. So why don't you build for the future? Why don't you have that kind of space for the future? air conditioning systems. I can go and buy the cheapest system out there and save myself a bunch of money, or I can spend a little bit more and buy a system such as a Carrier or a Train or a York or a Lennox system that I know I'll be able to get the parts for that machine for the next 50 years easily. You know what I mean? It's not going to be hard. I'm not going to have to wait for a part to come in. It's going to be on the shelf everywhere I go. You know, the technician's going to have it in his truck because I didn't cheap out and go with the cheap system that no one services or takes care of. You know, I bought a faucet online one time from a Chinese manufacturer, right? Beautiful faucet for my kitchen. It started to leak after a while. I needed a washer. Couldn't buy one. Couldn't find one that washer that size. I needed to thread a new connection to it. Nothing I could find would thread to it. So I had to get rid of the whole faucet just for a small leak. You know, it's about buying and providing material and equipment that is going to last longer, and it's going to be easily serviceable. It's going to be easily upgradable. You know, even the designs of the buildings, I'm going to design a building in a timeless manner. You know what I mean? I'm not going to follow the trend of a style or a shape or anything like that. I want to see it, you know, my properties standing the test of time. I'm sure down there in South Florida where you are, there's some beautiful Spanish Mediterranean buildings that are probably 100 years old, and they look 100 times better than the new stuff. You know what I mean? It's about being able to remodel a property in the future, because you're going to have to do remodels every 10 or 20 to keep your product relevant to the market. But you want to be able to have a building that's easily remodeled. You know, you're easy to remodel. You know what I mean? You don't want to have this building with all this fancy material or these fancy designs or these columns or these, you know, all these different things that people put into their building to make it stand out. But you know what? It's going to cost you 10 times more to remodel that building 10 to 20 years from now than it will be for mine. You know, it's all about thinking about the future, spending a little bit more on the material, spending a little bit more on making sure whatever you do is going to be easily taken care of in the future. Because I can't tell you how many times I've gone to a building or a property and I needed to fix something or I needed to upgrade something, and I look at the electrical panel and it's maxed out because someone got cheap and they put in a small panel, you know, or I needed to shut off water to repair a water leak and somebody was cheap and I had to shut off water to the whole building versus having multiple water shutoffs through the whole building. Those are just a couple extra valves to install. You know, they're, you know, $10 or $15 a piece, but someone got cheap and decided not to install multiple valves. So you had to, so every tenant had to suffer with no water while you fixed just one place. So these things about, you know, longevity and creating ease and just doing a little bit extra for the long term are very big for me. You know what I mean? You know, I've seen plenty of builders, you know, go cheap and it just causes nothing but a headache and heartache for the owner in the long run. You know what I mean? And for the tenants as well. So,
yeah. I mean, I 100% agree with you on that one too. It's just, it's the little things too that you can add to something that it could expand the life and make it more timeless. I mean, I even talk about like going on the home perspective and residential perspective things is like baseboards. Like, I mean, down here it's very moist. We get a lot of rain, we get a lot of weather, and especially if there's a hurricane, so on. Well, if you're using MDF for your baseboards, you know, it's going to swell up, and majority of them always do. And the homeowner has to swap them out themselves or pay for new. We use actual wood, so you know, it's a little difference there. Yeah, it costs more to do it, but with wood, they're not going to have that issue, you know. And like we even started doing like metal front doors now because of expansion and contraction issues in wood or in fiberglass doors, believe it or not, too. There's over time, they have issues down here because of the heat, the sun, the salt air. There's so much variables that go into these things, so we pay a little bit more. We put a metal door in, we don't really have any issues with it ever, you know. And then there's just other little things like I'll even go into carpet. I mean, we do higher end carpet that's going to last because a lot of these builders will do cheap carpet that over a year, 2 years of traffic being on that carpet, it's wore and they got to rip it out and pay for new carpet and end up putting the better stuff we had originally and spending twice the price. So, there's so many things, and I can go on and on. I should make a list of them of what people should look for. I might do a show off of that actually too, now that I'm thinking about it, because there's the list goes on, and I do my research. I know what local builders do and so on, just for my own sales end and strategies too. I'm sure you do too, and you're in your world seeing what they're doing in the commercial world. But it's so important not to cut the corners.
It's that's a good idea. Coming up with a list of how much better your building could be just by spending $100 here, 10 cents a square foot there. It's really not that much, but it's going to take your building. It's going to double the value of it. It's going to double the longevity out of it. You know what I mean? It's not hard, and it's easy to do, but just no one thinks about it though. Like you said, your steel doors, I'm sure those doors are going to last for 50 years or more. You put on a wood door, they're going to have to swap that out every 10 years or something like that.
Or refinish it, and
all the time. You know what I mean? But no one thinks about these things. It's about appliances. I know you do high-end homes, and people may want, Miele and Wolf and these, super high-end appliances. Well, you can go get Samsung or Kenmore or Maytag appliances and get their high-end line, which are amazing products at half the price. And they're going to be easier to service and easier to repair, and they're going to last twice as long anyways. And they're going to be, even better than what they want, just because they don't have the high-end name on them. The customer is going to get way more value out of them. You know what I mean? So it's just thinking about these little things that no one does. Like, how many times have you crawled into an attic to try and get to an AC system that needed to be repaired or replaced, and you can barely squeeze in there? And it's just like they're not thinking about the long term. Maybe this attic should have a little bit more space in it, so that we can work on the AC system, or we can take it in and take it out easier. It's just no one takes the time to do this kind of stuff.
Well, I mean, it's even like, and going back to what we talked about in the pre-planning stage. I mean, with AC systems too, here, I don't know about where you're at, we can put air handlers in closets, and we call them utility closets. That makes your air handler in an AC'd environment. It's going to last. It's not going to sweat. It's probably going to last longer because the attic's so hot. Even though we do spray foam in our attics, that's going to lower the temperature. And if the air handler's up there, but still, it's an attic. It's Florida. I mean, the summers get hot here. We get up to the 90s, if not hotter. So there's just things that, we can, like I just said, we can go on and on this topic that, and we push, and I'm pretty familiar with appliances and how they work and stuff, just dealing with the customers that we deal with. We're big advocate on Thermador. Thermador is a great product. There's not many issues ever with them. Warranties are strong, so on. Versus going up to a Miele or one of those, or Wolf Viking. I mean, Wolf and Viking are up there. Thermador can get close depending what you pick, but Thermador also has a value product too. So, and I sound like an appliance salesman right now, but
stuff.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much different things you can do. Even doing like different, there's tile, outdoor tile. We do, tongue and groove ceilings outside, but we use cypress, and there's just, cypress holds up, bug resistant, weather resistant. It's just, there's so many, the list goes on and on, man.
Well, it's, same thing for commercial buildings,
Yeah.
If you want it to last, just do a little bit of extra, just a little. Because I've seen commercial buildings that are 10 years old and they look like they're 100. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I've seen that in the residential world too, which kind of goes into another topic too. Is I like to talk about price because we both know it's a huge topic with every customer, no matter what industry you're in. I mean, what should customers know up front when discussing pricing structure with a commercial contractor or developer?
It's a good question. It's when I get into a project, or when I am working on a development, or whether for a client, or is it for myself, um, I'm very cautious as to change orders and price overruns. You know what I mean? There's some contractors out there that, they'll come in and they'll bid low and they will change order you to death. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
They will nickel and dime you to where it was twice as much as the highest, bidding contractor. So when it comes to getting into an agreement with a contractor to build your product, or to be a subcontractor for you, if you're building your own product or what have you not, I think you need to be very clear from the beginning who's responsible for the extras, or the things that the engineer missed, or mistakes that people made. Because if you're not careful, they're going to come back and nickel you and dime you till
Mm-hmm.
you're dead. So you need to make sure up front, like, hey, there's a small allowance for changes. The engineer will be responsible for certain things because he designed a poor product. I think that needs to be in there. Um, the subcontractor needs to be responsible for small changes that won't cost him extra. He needs to kind of be flexible with that as well. So I think you need to know at the very beginning who's responsible for anything above and beyond the bottom line. And when it comes to pricing of a contractor, I think it's very important to see the contractor's work. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? If I'm going to hire a guy to frame a building for me, I want to go see his other work that he's working on right now. I want to see his job site. I want to see if he is spending too much money on wood because he's not ordering it correctly, and he has all these extra cuts that he has to make. You know what I mean? That comes out of your own pocket. Got to go see, the contractor who's doing your tiling and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Is he really, putting in what you specified? Because I think most people are not going to know whether it's porcelain or ceramic, as long as it looks nice. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So it's really important to kind of like look into the details of these things when you get into a contract, and make sure you are definitely getting what you pay for. I think most people just kind of assume whatever the person tells them is truth, and I think they need to look beyond that sometimes. You know what I mean? Are you getting quality paint when you're paying for it, and they're showing up with the low grade stuff? You know what I mean? It's not about what you're paying for at the bottom line. It's making sure you get what you pay for is what I think is important. So, and if that comes to on your contract saying, I will promise to do Sherwin-Williams paint, high quality, and that's in the contract, you're bound by that, and the customer knows they're going to get the best paint. If the framer promises, I'm only going to use A grade wood, and he shows you receipts for A grade wood, that's good, because you got to make sure you're getting what you pay for. Because a lot of guys will come and say, I'm going to give you A grade, but they go get B and C, and you don't know the difference. You know what I mean? So it's not about getting the best deal. It's making sure you get what you pay for. You know what I mean? I think that's more important than getting the best price on something. Like with your company, Bill, I'm sure when you tell a client, I'm going to use A grade lumber, and I'm going to use 3,000 psi concrete for the pilings and
Mm-hmm.
things, you can back that up at the end of the day. You can show them
Oh
in
yeah.
and stuff like that. Look, I use the heavy duty concrete, but the other guy was going to come and just use your 2,500 psi standard stuff. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But the customer is not going to know that.
Mm-hmm.
Those are things that I think that are very, very important, that the customer gets what they pay for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you get what you pay for. I mean, it's plain and simple. And I'm so big on educating too prior, and that's what I really work hard for every single customer that comes into one of our homes too, that I'm showing, that's shopping other builders. I try and educate as much as possible. Some of them don't want to hear it. They're just fixed on the price. They don't care about anything else but a number. And to be honest, those are the type of people that aren't meant for us as a builder, because I already know we're not going to be the cheapest builder. We're not the most expensive, but we're not the cheapest. And, it's just, I know I'm the better investment overall, that they can have. And I tell them that, but it's also educating them ahead of hand too. So when customers go in to see a builder or view a model home or do whatever they're doing, it's important for that builder to have a strong salesperson that knows what he's talking about too. Because some of these builders, they put realtors in there and they don't have a clue what they're talking about or anything about construction. They're just pointing out how great the room looks and the furniture looks, so, which makes my job easier for selling our product, because I point out all the actual materials too. And I've said this, I open up every cabinet, I open up every drawer, I'm touching the doors, I'm knocking, solid wood doors, telling them what's behind the walls, what we're using on the floor, what's in the ceiling, what's behind insulation wise, our value wise. There's just so many things, like me and you talked about, that's so important that people don't see and they don't know. And when they do learn, they're like, okay. But it's also, I write it down. I have it written to where, okay, before you go to contract, here it is on paper. Here's exactly what you're going to get, room by room, even outside detail and so on. This is exactly what you're going to get. You sign off on this, I'll sign off on this, and then we'll get a contract going together. How's that sound? Here's your price too, and it's so important to be upfront with these people too, because the feature sheets that I do, and that's what we call them, almost like their Bible. During the build process, that's what they're going to refer to constantly, besides their blueprint too. But there's so much detail on that sheet that if there's questions asked, refer back to this bedroom. You can see what we're using there. We even describe, explain the paint we're using and so on. So it's just like you said, man, it's so important just to be upfront with people and be honest with them. You get what you pay for.
I do see that, and I think it's really important that, even though I build commercial and I build apartments and I build, retail buildings, and I do want to, over deliver, when it comes to, maybe single family home buyer, or, one of my old clients when I was doing the construction, I want them to understand that, this is not just your home you're buying. This is an investment. You know what I mean? How many people go out there and they buy a car and they wash it all the time, and they garage it all the time, and they take so much care of it, and it will last forever. Well, the people are also buying a house. So if you take care of your house, and the house is built with good product and good quality and the best, craftsmanship out there, that investment will last you so much longer than your next door neighbor. But I don't think they really understand that it's more than a home. This is an investment, an investment. You want to take care of it, and you want to get what you pay for, and you want to have something that's high quality that'll last you forever. But people are just sold the home. You know what I mean? The decorators, they come in, they make it look cute and pretty, and then they're like, we're sold, but it could be the worst built building or home in the world. And, their investment goes down the tubes. You know what I mean? It's all about to me, it's all about the longevity of things, so.
Yeah, I highly agree, man. So keep moving here. I brushed on this a little bit, and this is a topic I wanted to get into with you, because me and you are exactly the same in this. Being second generation in a company can be tough, as you know. Me and you have talked personally about this. We have to face challenges and deal with family not wanting to make modern changes or grow the business the way we want to do. They're kind of stuck in their old ways. Same with some of the employees that have been there for forever and so on. So let's discuss some of these issues and how we can tackle them to make our business and customer experience better. Because it's important, because there's a lot of new ways. Like, for example, I just had Spencer Paget on from Co-Construct, and implementing modern technology into your building business to streamline the company is so important. But unfortunately, not everybody wants to hop aboard. So let's talk about some of the things that we have to deal with and how we can tackle these things to make the experience for our customers better too, along with ourselves.
Well, I think, you and I probably, and a lot of others running into the same problem. My biggest, struggle with, taking a business and wanting to grow it. And I think even if you're the CEO of an international company, or like you and I, who are, you know, small regional builders and owners, is how to scale a business, or how to change that culture and mindset that's been in the business for so long, you know, and how do you change it so you can scale that business to bigger and better things because of technology, because of your, you know, your smartphone and your computer and everything else. You're able to do so much more, and you're able to grow so much more, and you're able to take and process so much more information than you ever had in the past. And you're taking a business that ran a certain way for so long and only grew at a certain pace for so long, and you're trying to, you know, take all of that good stuff and move it into the future, which is now, and grow that business and scale that business, you know what I mean? So my biggest problem that I'm facing right now is scaling the business and changing the culture of that business, and from what it has been the last, you know, 20, 30 years. You know, I'm able to go and look at, you know, other markets like Las Vegas and Phoenix and other parts of the state, where before, you know, a builder or a developer couldn't do that because they just didn't have access to it. You know what I mean? So taking that mindset of not having the access there, and then going and doing it and being able to build 2, 3, 4, or 5 projects at a time versus one at a time, which it's been in the past, because, you know, you had to be on site. You know, you didn't have technology, you didn't have a smartphone, you didn't have a computer, you know. You were only able to coordinate and build so much of a certain product at one time, but now you're able to do 10 times that. And if that opportunity presents itself, I want to do that. I want to build 10 times more.
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like, you know, taking things that have been stuck in the past and bring them into the future. And that's where I struggle. It's being able to scale a business and take that culture and make something bigger and better out of it. And it's like, you know, it's almost like, you know, you can take a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Well, I need to make them drink. You know what I mean? I need to make them drink. So it's those are my struggles. You know, those are my struggles. You know, I see a lot of opportunity and a lot of potential developments, and it's like, you know, I kind of get pushed back. Oh no, we can't do that. Oh, that's too much. Oh, we're getting ahead of ourselves. I'm like, no, we're not. You know, we have the tools to manage this stuff now, but it's you know, that mindset, that mentality, and changing it over, which it will happen, but it's a lot of work, you know. So
Yeah, I mean, there's certain and over time, it's taken me quite a bit of time to kind of get things implemented that I've wanted to, and every second generation or even third generation person can attest to this, and you know, we learn, you know, coming up, the things that do work too. And like, I mean, I always use this, I've used this example too. I don't think I've ever said it on a podcast. I remember I was telling my dad, I was like, yeah, we got to start doing some Facebook advertising. And, you know, it's, everybody's going on Facebook. You can get in front of them so easy. And he's like, what do I need book face for? That's what he called it, you know? So he's like, I ain't using that book face. So, you know, I was like, Facebook, Dad, Facebook, you know? So it's just, they don't understand. It's just that aspect they don't understand in these modern ways and approaches. I mean, my dad, don't get me wrong, he's built a hell of a company just by word of mouth, reputation alone, hard work, and so on. And that's what he's instilled in me and my brother is, we're never handed anything. And I always say this because not a lot of people understand that if you're in a second generation business, a lot of us probably get this too. I'm sure you're the same way, is that everybody kind of automatically assumes you've been handed everything, but it's not true. By far, it's not true. I mean, I was out digging ditches for I don't even know how long, sweeping jobs. I even tell we have a laborer now. I go, there was times like my dad had nothing for me to do, so there'd be cement block and a pile out front of the house, and he'd tell me, all right, move it over there. Yeah. And for what reason? And now I've learned too, back then I thought it really had to be moved. Right. But now I've learned it didn't even have to be moved. The cement block's sitting always where where the concrete guys drop it off. So he would just make me do stuff like that, just to give me something to do, that was hard. So, and out in the sun doing that, it's not easy work. But like I said, having that experience and not being handed anything, and I'm sure you've come from the same path, like a lot of second generation people, that's what's made us better too. And now the older we get, we're able to kind of slowly, I should say, implement the things that we're trying to do, and implement core values and so on, and build kind of our vision of what is out there, or what we can do to better the process and better streamline everything for customers and so on. Because me being involved with customers like I have been, I've seen what works and what doesn't. So now I'm able to implement those strategies to make these things better and easier on me and my brother within the company too. So
It's like you said, nothing is handed to us. These men have gone from nothing and they built something out of it, and you have to appreciate that.
Yeah.
It's hard for them to see their baby in someone else's hands. I get that. I get that. And then trying to take technology and take what they've built and create something even bigger out of it. It's it's new. It's not something that's comfortable for them. So it is a slow process. It does take time, but there is an amazing foundation there to make something really, really great out of. You know what I mean? And it is work. But like you said, you're digging ditches. I've dug ditches. You know what I mean? I dug footings just to keep permits active. You know what I mean? There's a shovel and a pickaxe. Digging footings. Just for a permit to keep it active so it doesn't expire. That's part of this family business. You do what you got to do. You know what I mean? And then when it comes to growing that business, you do what you got to do to grow that business, because it's not just you that are a recipient of that business. You have a family, you have brothers, you have a father, you have a mother, you have a sister. They all are dependent in one way or another off this business. So you have a lot of responsibility on your shoulders to do the right thing and make sure you continue to do the right thing. You know what I mean? And that's growing the business in a very structured and responsible way. But, at the end of the day, you do have to grow that business.
Yeah, I mean, and it's all a learning thing too. It makes you respect the business too. Like right now I see there's stuff that I had to do, like digging trenches for piping and stuff like that the subcontractors are doing. That they could have just did, but just to give me more to do and more hard work and labor. He made me do it. So, and it is there. They built it, they built it to where it is, but it gives us a better appreciation of it, because if you're just handed something, man, and unfortunately a lot of second generation, third generation people that's a whole topic within itself, but they are, and the odds of it failing are tremendous versus somebody that has built up respect for what it has, what they've gone through and done and learned. And I've learned so much doing what I did as a laborer too. I mean, I actually can say I swung a hammer. I did concrete work. I've done stucco work. I've done drywall work. I've done plumbing. I've done electrical. I could actually say I know how to do it myself and fix things myself too. And that just gives you a better appreciation of the business that you are a part of too. I mean, because you know that they obviously built it. There's an ego thing behind it, but also they want their name and what they built to carry on too. They don't just want it to end. If they have a respect for their business, they're not going to want it to end. They're going to want their sons or daughter to take it over and continue their name, and that's what we plan to do too.
Well, I think there's a statistic, like you said, on second and third generation businesses, like I think like something like 60 to 80% of them go out of business because I think the culture and the mindset is not the same anymore.
Yeah.
You gotta maintain that, because a lot of those things made that business what it is, and if you don't respect it, if you don't get your hands dirty, if you don't keep those same certain values of that business, it's going to go away and you're going to lose everything.
Yeah, it's the respect thing, like we just said. It's just, if you don't have respect for the company, you're not going to continue the company the way it should be ran. You're just going to run it into the ground, make stupid decisions, and not care. I mean, you're not going to have the care that you should for the business by putting in the hard work for it too. And that's one thing, getting past that opinion of what people think, that us as second generation, third generation, is just handed to you. By far it is not. So if you're listening out there, no, it's not.
I have
um
no idea
so
what a silver spoon is.
yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. So going on a different topic, like let's talk a little bit just briefly, customer service. What are you focusing on the most with customer service, and what have you done as a company to kind of create a great or a great focus on customer service?
I think that is, something that a lot of business owners don't do. If
Hmm.
you look at, the RTA and First Foreman, they sending you thank you letters for every order you order from the business, or, follow-up phone calls, or like I do, I'll actually go out and collect rent, and go see the tenants, every so often, and make sure they all have my cell phone number. I don't give it to the apartment tenants because they come and go quite frequently, but the retail tenants and the office tenants that have been around for years and years, they all have my number. I'm on their group chats. You know what I mean? I'm like
Hmm.
on the group chat saying, oh, someone's UPS box is here. Who does it belong to? I'm on that chat because I want them to have that kind of access to me. You know what I mean? I want them to call me and say, hey, Ahmed, the maintenance people didn't come. The bathroom's a mess, and I'll go out there myself and clean it. I want them to make sure that, we're all one big family, and they can contact me at any time with any concern and talk to me about that. I don't want to be like the owner or the manager or the or whoever it may be that's inaccessible, or say, oh, if you have a complaint, send an email type thing. No. And doing that, I've seen tenants stay a lot longer than other projects or other buildings. You know what I mean? Some will say, hey, I'm having a little bit of a financial issue. I need to, you know, hold off on paying my rent for 2 weeks or something like that. And I know them, they've been with me 5, 10 years. I'll be like, yeah, I know you, I get it. That's fine. You know what I mean? Anybody else would have evicted the person by now. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
You got to have those kinds of relationships, whether you have 20 or 30 tenants like I do, or if you have 200 or 300, you got to have those relationships. And if you can't maintain those relationships yourself, then you got to make sure your management team has that kind of mentality and it has that kind of culture that they can do that with their tenants. You know what I mean? It starts at the top, like I would assume you're calling all your past clients at least once or twice a year, just following up with them. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
Bill, I sold you a house, built your house 5 years ago. How you doing? Anything you need? Anything I can help you out with? Okay, just give me a call, leave me a message, whatever. I mean, it's not that hard, especially with the smartphone. You can drive from one meeting to the other, and you can call 10 different clients or 10 different tenants or 10 different past people you built for, and that goes a long way. It goes a long way that they know they have access to you, and if they have access to you, I've seen that gives them a sense of ownership in their um, building, wherever they may be, and they treat it better.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? They're like, oh, I know the owner, I know the manager, oh, I have a good relationship with them. I am not going to beat up this building. I am not going to treat it like a like trash. Oh, if there is a problem, I'm going to attend to it. Or if someone dropped the paper on the floor, I'm going to pick it up on behalf of the owner, because they have a sense of ownership or a sense of responsibility, because I've tried to create that culture with myself and with my tenants so they feel that way. You know what I mean? And that goes to you having a better product than everyone else, because your product will always look better. You will always have happier tenants. You always have good communication between everybody. You know what I mean? And it goes to having that long-term type business that you want.
Yeah, and I've been emphasizing that to every single new customer or client, potential client that I deal with too, is how we play more long term with the customer relationship even after the warranty too. And like for example, just quick, I had an 81-year-old woman call me off my Christmas card that I hand wrote to her, saying I'm happy to help you in any kind of way. And I brought this up before, that was part of my card. You're part of our family. We built your home, whether you're second, third, fourth owner of the home, you're part of the family because you're in a Ryman home. Well, an 81-year-old lady contacted me because she had a or a gutter problem. The water running off her roof was so substantial, it was flooding her planter, which the planter would get flooded and the water was working its way into her garage. So she called me over. I looked at it. I said, I'll get my gutter guy over there. He'll solve the issue. She was going out of town, actually, I think to California. I got my gutter guy there while she wasn't even there. He installed the gutter. I'm not sure if she even knows the gutter was installed. I got to go over there, and I don't know if she returned yet or not. But it's just doing those little things for the clients too, and going above and beyond. It's huge, man. Like you said, it's just and that's what's so important about customer service, because not a lot of builders or anybody, not a lot of people will put an emphasis on it too, and that's for sure. One thing I wanted to brush on with you, I was just thinking about this because there is people out there that probably are wondering too, is you're in the commercial development space, obviously you're a commercial broker and so on. So what's a way to get started in that space? Just touch on that, because there's probably people that are, oh, he's running 30 units. I wonder how to get, what's the best way to get started? Because a lot of the times people ask me like, hey, I want to get my contractor's license. What should I do? I've answered, you should get experience first. That's the main thing. And then learn from somebody that knows it and then get into it. I'm sure it's the same with you, but just brush on it.
For sure. When it comes to some of our larger projects, properties, we have in Phoenix, we have a couple hundred units out there and stuff like that. I will not manage those myself just because of the scope of daily work that's needed. So we hire a management company for that, and they report to me. But some of our local properties, I will do some management of there. I will do some rent collection. I'll make sure that you're around. But when it comes to getting into the business, whether when it comes to commercial development or construction, I've seen a very, if I was to do it all over again, I would go as a project manager for a construction company. I would,
Hmm.
go to college, maybe get my project management degree, or even if I was, not in college and I wanted to do that, I'd get in with a commercial construction company as a project manager or a junior project manager or project engineer, and work my way up from there. Because one, you are going to learn everything there is about
Hmm.
building a building. There is nothing that you're not going to be exposed to. You know what I mean? And you're being paid to do it. You know what I mean? You're getting paid to have an amazing education. You know, and if you're doing that for a few years, that gives you the experience you need to go and get your commercial contractor's license. You know what I mean? You got to have a couple years of experience being a project manager and being in the field and being a superintendent or whatever it may be that you're out there that you're being paid to do. That's going to give you all the experience you need, plus the years that you need to have to put down on that application to get that license. So if you have the opportunity, get into project management somewhere, somehow, whether it's for a general contractor or it's for an HVAC company or a concrete company or whatever it may be. Just get in, because you're going to make so many connections and so
Hmm.
many relationships. You're going to have people knocking on your door to give you a job because they're like, hey, we worked with you on 2 or 3 projects already. We really love how you operate. Would you want to come work for us? You know what I mean? It's just, the community is small, and then people are going to notice you. So I'd suggest getting in with any type of contractor, whether it's a subcontractor, a general contractor, or even a project management firm, and get in as a junior project engineer, junior project manager, whatever you can get in as, get in there, and you are going to get the best education you can ever get.
Yeah, that was actually spot on. What I'm 100%, I 100% agree with you too, because actual experience is way better than actual just education and books. Actually being out in the field and learning from these people, but like you said too, it's going to put you around these high level people too, whether you do it for a couple days a week part time. Just say, hey, I'll do it for free just to learn. I mean, there's so much in this our industry that you have to learn, and it's an industry too that not a lot of people want to put in the hard work to do, because there is so much work involved in it. But your answer was spot on. um, I've been asking this question to everybody because it's so important too. So what about you personally? I mean, you've been part of an amazing company that continues to grow, your family business. And so what lessons have you learned throughout your journey? Because I mean, from your story from, starting working in gas stations all the way to where you are now, what lessons have you learned throughout your journey that we should all apply to our own business or lives that can help us all grow? Very big question.
Good question. There's a lot of answers to that as well. Um, it's like the old adage is like, when you die, you're not taking anything with you, right?
Mhm.
Well, you are. You're taking your life experience. You're taking your accomplishments. You're taking your good deeds with you. So what I've learned is always do the right thing, even if it's not right at the moment. Always do the right thing, and that means, what, if someone paid you too much, give them their money back.
Mhm.
If somebody is yelling and screaming at you for something that's not even your fault, help them out. You know what I mean? It's always do the right thing. So whether it's with a tenant or with a subcontractor or whoever it may be that you're working with, do the right thing, because people are going to start realizing that Bill always does the right thing. I want to work with Bill. I want that relationship with Bill because I'll never have to worry about working with Bill. I'll
Mhm.
always know that Bill has my back, Same with me. I want to make sure everyone that I work with, whether it's a tenant or a customer or a client or a subcontractor, that, hey, I always want to work with the med because he always does the right thing. And even if it's hard and difficult for him to do it, he still does it anyways. If it costs him money, he does it anyways. You know what I mean? Because once people know that that's who you are, the business and the recognition and everything that comes with it will automatically come to you, and it's going to stay with you. You know what I mean? You're going to be the kind of customer or the contractor or the business person that somebody will always call to do business with, because they know you're that kind of person. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's almost like the referral. It's almost like, oh, you want this? Call Bill.
Mhm.
Always does the right thing, and they will always call you. You know what I mean? Because the minute you do something wrong, that is going to last with you for the rest of your life.
Mhm.
They say you're only as good as your last project. So if you built 100 beautiful projects, but the 101st was garbage, that's your reputation, is
Mhm.
garbage. You know what I mean? So you don't want that. So, even if it hurts you, even if it costs you money, even if it, damages you in somewhere or another, always do the right thing, because people will recognize that, and it will come back and it'll pay you 100 times over.
Yeah, I love that answer, man. That's why I love asking that question. I don't think I've ever got the same answer from anybody with that question, too. Great answer right there, too. I've been also asking this question, too. I've been also asking this question, too, because, most people don't ask it. I always ask kind of about your past, too, but I want to kind of get into your future. So, what are your plans for your future, whether it's business or life? Where will we see Ahmed in the future? Who will you be?
Building something.
There you go.
Building something. And even if I'm not being paid to do it, I'll still be building, because to me, that's fun. To me,
Mm,
it's like Legos just on a big scale. Um, I always thought that, your career is a one business, a one company type deal. You know what I mean? And, just recently becoming, getting into art and seeing everyone else, you don't need to just have one business or one company or one career. You can have multiple tracks at the same time as long as you manage them correctly. So I see myself as, being the builder to beat. I'm seeing myself as having the type of building that everyone strives to do and tries to do better. You know what I mean? I want to be set that bar where the competition says, oh, look at, that's a meds building. That's the standard that we need to at least try to attempt to get to. You know what I mean? And at the same time, being a commercial developer and an investor, I can go and also have subsidiaries that complement my business that I can also, make money off of, whether it's a subcontractor or HVAC company or a project management company or something like that. I could, go and build those teams in the future, not only to contribute to my projects, but to contribute to other people's projects also. I mean, there's so much business out there that you can go and help other people in theirs as well, because, there's no way you're going to get it all yourself. So might as well, spread the help, spread the knowledge, spread the, the lessons to other people so they could have good businesses too. So I want to do that as well, in one way or another.
Awesome, man. Yeah, great answer. So last question, I always ask everybody, what exactly do people need to look for when hiring a commercial contractor, and why should they choose your development company as their landlord of choice?
People need to look to the person, I think, or the company. They need to have that kind of relationship where they know that contractor or that developer or that landlord is going to have their back. No matter what happens, that landlord is going to have their back. I can't tell you how many times people have called me with issues that don't really directly relate to the business or them being a tenant, but they need help with, that I have no problem helping them out with. You know what I mean? I want them to know that they can call me or call my, one of my managers, or call somebody within the company and say, hey, I need help. I don't know who to call, but I know you guys have resources. I know you guys, have experience. Can you help me out? I want to be that kind of company. So when somebody is looking to hire a contractor or a builder, or looking to rent or lease space in one of my buildings, I want them to know that we're going to look at them more than just than a customer. We're going to look at them as, a family member that needs to be protected, and a family member that needs to be, guided as well, So I want them to have that feeling when they work with whoever it may be, whether it's me or whether it's you or someone else. They need to know that they need to be treated like a family, and that the company has their back.
Awesome. Yeah. Once again, Ahmed, this has been awesome, man. I really appreciate you doing this, taking your time. I know you're a busy guy. Last thing too, where can people find and connect with you?
I'd welcome it. You can find me on Instagram at Ahmed, the real estate developer, and it's spelled AHMED. And we're just starting to get a new website up for the company, and it's ADC, as in Apple David Charlie PROP.com.
Awesome, man. Yeah, and I recommend anybody getting into this industry or trying to get into this industry, because there's a lot of work behind it. They reach out to you for sure, because you got a lot of knowledge about it, man.
Anytime. I would love to help anyone out.
Yeah, this has been awesome, man. A lot of great info. I really appreciate you coming on. So once again, thank you, and I'll see you guys on the next episode.